these conditions like ADHD and bipolar, for them to be understood and for them to be realized, yeah, when the information is there, that people can realize when it's early and it can be treated and diagnosed. And for Kenya to be a place where mental health is regarded as very crucial, not just bodily health, because for me, I feel like it goes from the mind till like the rest of us. So yes, I wish like more interactions like this can happen, more interviews like this, so that we can get the words out there.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles Show. You know, when it's Thursday, it's Miles Show day. So today I have a good guest here, a friend of mine, back from campus. She's going to be talking about a very interesting topic today, and I'll let her introduce herself as we get into the discussion of today's episode. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you very much. My name is Cindy. I am a student of psychology and a lover of mental health. I'm passionate about mental health. Yes, and today's topic we'll be discussing ADHD and bipolar disorder.
All right, thank you so much, Cindy, for that intro. And as you just said, today we're going to be discussing about ADHD. And I'd like to ask you the first question: what is ADHD?
ADHD is also called attention deficit disorder, which is a chronic condition including attention difficulty, hyperactivity, and impulsiveness. So basically, ADHD is just a term they use, but it's a deficit. Okay, it's an attention deficit disorder. So basically, it's characterized by low self-esteem, troubled relationships, and difficulty at school or work. So such a person is not able to like maintain the normal level of concentration that is required to do like everyday tasks or to function in society.
All right. So as you just defined for us what ADHD is, yes, what are some of the causes of ADHD that are there in the society or known in the psychological world?
Okay. So the first cause of ADHD is the brain injury. So trauma to the brain through accidents, yes, and exposure to environmental like hazards such as lead during pregnancy. If like your mom was exposed to such stuff, like you ultimately like have ADHD. And then if your parent your mother during child, like before you were born, as an unborn child, your mother was consuming drugs and alcohol, it causes that. And premature delivery. So the normal period of birth for a human is 9 months. So under that, let's say you were born 7 months, you can automatically be exposed to ADHD because of like failure to receive oxygen to the brain, stuff like that causes ADHD. And then finally, having a low birth weight. If you're supposed to be born 3 kgs and a child is born 1 kg or like such small numbers, it can expose a child to experience ADHD.
Okay. From your examples of causes of ADHD, yes, I've just noticed that most of it is seen in early childhood, like when an infant is being born or during the 9 months period. So my question to you, like this is just randomly, I'm just thinking about it. So does ADHD affect only children or also adults experience?
It can be observed in childhood and then it passes into adulthood if it's left untreated. Yes.
All right, that's quite unique.
But even as an adult, because as we said, the brain injury, once you experience severe trauma to the brain, even as an adult, you experience that ADHD.
So it's usually experienced even during childhood, like even when someone... And that brings me to my next question. So what are some of the signs and symptoms that one can notice about ADHD, especially since we are seeing ADHD is seen mostly with young children, or children generally. Yes. Let's just talk about the young child who has, in school, maybe who's experiencing ADHD. How can a teacher, for example, notice the signs and symptoms of a ADHD person or a ADHD in a child?
Okay, the first example of ADHD is impulsiveness. A child or a person experiencing ADHD, all of a sudden, like they can just start to do random actions in the middle of nowhere that have nothing to do with the present action. Like maybe you're in class, everyone is quiet, then they began to scream so loud, so as like to disrupt the rest of the people in the class. Another one is disorganization and problem prioritizing. Like I guess many children are happy to be able to get over obstacles, but a child with ADHD, they will be so negative to the point where they don't want to they don't want to do like they will focus more on the problem than taking action to solve it. They become stuck in that way. So they also have poor time management skills. This is a child who they're not able to take the allocated time to perform tasks. If you tell them, like, this was the time to color, like 10 times to color something, they will take that 10 minutes, like looking outside or talking with their friends. Maybe their friends are doing the task that has been given to them, only for them to realize at the end of the 10 minutes, they've not been able to complete the task. So they also have problems focusing on a task similarly, and even so, like you can think like, okay, maybe it's just that one task, but even multitasking is a problem for them. You tell them focus on one task and finish it, they can't. And similarly, you tell them to multitask and juggle different tasks, and they can't either. So another one is excessive activity or restlessness. A child like this, sitting still in a chair is hard for them. They sit, they stand up, they go there, they come back, like that. Poor planning and low frustration tolerance. Like this child, they don't have goals that they can achieve. You find maybe they can get 10% in maths. Then the next time they get 20. Then they're like, oh yeah, I've done so well because I've improved. Because they don't even really have that much goals. To them, anything is okay. Yeah. And they have low frustration tolerance. If they are triggered even in the least by someone, they act violently. Yeah. Or they become very repressed. They are not speaking to anyone.
All right. All right, thank you so much for that. And just to highlight in a few from the signs and symptoms you said,
Yes.
so I think it's quite important also for like teachers out there, especially the ones in primary schools and kindergarten, like to be very, very patient with children because you never know if they're experiencing ADHD.
Yes.
So, because I've seen in so many situations, like I remember when I was in school, like around primary school actually, like there was there were some students or there were some classmates of mine that used to be, I'm not saying they had ADHD, but like I can get the sense and symptoms what you mean by, so like I can remember like back in school, teachers used to like wanted to teach us in a specific way or wanted to do specific things towards us instead of like being patient with children. No, it's not like university how you can control your life. Here you're usually controlled with, but you find there's some very strict or should I say not empathetic teachers out there who do not care about. So kindly teachers, as you play around with kids or like when you're teaching children there,
Yes.
kindly look at the signs and symptoms if they're suffering from ADHD. But generally, it's quite important to be very patient with children when you are teaching them because they are learning. Learning takes time. So be patient. That brings me to my other question. Like, as we have looked at the signs and symptoms, are there types of ADHD there in the society?
Actually, there are 4 types of ADHD, and they include inattentive, hyperactive, impulsive, and combined types. So, as you can see, like inattentive is like one who's passive. Their energy has not gone to that place where they're like disrupting people. But you can see this child, like they're not disturbing, but they're not there. It's like the child is not there, they're not present, they cannot be able to learn or pick up on anything. So hyperactive is like the opposite of inattentive. This person has gone overboard. Now this is a child who you can be doing class 4 maths. This child has already gone to class 8 maths, but it's not like they know. They don't actually even know. But it's just that their energy is too high that they are going overboard. And then now there's the impulsive one. Now this one is the one out of nowhere. Yani, there is no these ones are now the most dangerous because they can take any action. But you're in class, they can be outside playing in the field. So, and now combined is the ones that show either one or two of the same symptoms. So they can be inattentive and hyperactive. So they fluctuate, or they can be hyperactive and impulsive. So they fluctuate between that. One time they do something that's just so overboard. Yeah. So those are the 4 types of ADHD that we have.
All right. So let's just look at it. Let's say, for example, like I didn't know about ADHD. I've just tuned it to the Miles show. I'm watching this episode about ADHD. And then I hear about the symptoms, signs and symptoms, and I'm like, okay, I probably have ADHD. So what I want to ask you is that, like, how can one treat themselves ADHD without medication? Like, I've just watched the show and like, oh, I think I have ADHD. How can I control ADHD without any medication? Like the natural way.
Other than medication, you can treat ADHD through talk therapy. Those are scheduled visits with a therapist who is licensed enough to be able to give you proper directions on, like, you can communicate your feelings, and then they can teach you how to control those symptoms. And then as well, you have to eat a balanced diet. A person suffering with ADHD, if a normal person has to eat a balanced diet, now ADHD, you have to completely follow a strict regimen of exercise and diet. And then finally, meditation, which is a spiritual practice. There are different forms of meditation, but the main point is to find stillness and to be able to find that place where you can balance well like a normal person, because it's like your emotions, your everything is all over the place. So when you do that spiritual practice to calm you down, it can reduce those symptoms of ADHD.
All right. Okay. So what happens when ADHD is not treated? For example, let's say, as I've said, I'm watching this show, I get to find out that I have ADHD. I've tried the like to try and control it by myself by not taking any medication, by doing the remedies, like as you say, meditation, exercise, dieting. Yeah. So what if ADHD is not treated, goes untreated? Like, how does a person behave when ADHD does not get treated?
Okay, so according to the symptoms we said, like, they're not even funny at all. They're very tiring symptoms. For someone to be having this, like, you can't just, it's like your energy is being misused, because it's very tiring symptoms. As we said, those, like, you're tired, you're impulsive, you're disorganized. Imagine what they can do to someone. So ultimately, if ADHD is left untreated, it can lead to someone first and foremost suffering low self-esteem, depression, and anxiety. So this comes from basically all those symptoms you said. If someone has poor management skills, every time they're the ones being told, why are you the last one to submit your work? Why are you the last one to do this? You're impulsive. You have been punished over so many times by your teacher because you're outside when other people are inside. You're depressed because you're not able to find solutions to your problems. Because a normal human being is supposed to, you find a problem, you solve it, and you move on. And then another one is difficulty in relationships. Let's say you're an impulsive person. Every time you do something that doesn't go in line with normal people and normal behavior, people will start to avoid you, or you can't just do the normal things that people are doing. When people are reading, you cannot read because your attention span is greatly affected. It leads to people will seclude you, even you seclude yourself. Yeah. So you also experience job instability because if you cannot pay attention, like, your attention is very low. You don't have, like, someone is teaching you how to perform a certain task. You can't pay enough attention. You do it the wrong way. Over a certain period of time, they will get frustrated with you. You get fired. You move on to a different job. It's the same thing. Ultimately, you find that you don't have a job. So that's job instability. And then negative parent-child interactions. You see with normal children, like, a normal child is supposed to be happy, normal, functioning in society. You do the normal things a child is supposed to do. But now, when a child is experiencing ADHD, like, they can't function like that. So the parent becomes frustrated. And then also it leads to strain in finances because it needs so much money for the medication, to pay for the therapy, certain foods they need. Yeah, and even that's, like as you said, the therapy, to pay for it, it's very expensive. So ultimately, after all that, the last thing that these people resort to is drug and alcohol intake, which they do in excess because they find a kind of they feel like they are protected by the drugs.
Yeah, that's what actually I
Yeah. It's a
safe
shield
haven.
from
Yeah,
reality.
yeah.
Yes, because reality is way too hard for them to process. For a normal, like as a normal human being, they just decide like, okay, drugs and alcohol are easy, and then they go there to drugs and alcohol. They meet other people who are as disturbed as them, and then they make those kind of negative networks. So they're like, okay, here there are people who love and accept me, so they do it in excess, and ultimately that can lead to an increased mortality rate because now they die because once you drink, maybe you drive badly, you you crash, you drink also, you harm your head, you fall down, you die. So that leads to a high mortality rate. Yeah. So those are the effects of untreated ADHD.
Just as a reminder, they also tend to, like as you're saying, they do drugs and alcohol.
Yes.
They also can sometimes get into so much sexual activities.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. They as a result of that, like reckless sexual behavior, you can find like they get drunk, someone can rape them, can abuse them, or they get into those orgies and stuff because those are the sorts of drugs and alcohol intake. You become open to any kind of sexual encounter. You you get an STD there, an STI, even HIV, and ultimately you pass away. So yes, those are the negative effects that happen to people who haven't treated ADHD.
All right. Thank you, Cindy, for giving us an insight about ADHD. I hope to our viewers out there you've learned what ADHD is. And it's actually a very common disorder that's there, mostly among children. So you should be very careful, or you should be very keen to see such types of signs and symptoms that can be gotten from, you can notice from children as early as 1 year old, even in months. And then you just build on it, and then you see, once you treat it early, the better. And also, even if you find out you have it right now, there's no problem. You still have time to, to get well. So, and it's not a disease like as people say it. It's just something normal. Not everyone can like concentrate fully, right? So it's not like something that we can crucify someone for life or about how they behave. And teachers out there across all types of system, from university till kindergarten, kindly be observant with your students, be observant with the pupils that you're teaching. And if you notice anything with them, if they don't submit the assignments on a regular at the right time, just have a talk with the child, try and see what's going on with them. You can even talk with their parents. Maybe you can find out from their parents. Maybe their parents, they think their children are okay in school, but maybe they're going through an issue and they know about it. So it's very important. Teachers, let me talk about teachers, because teachers, it's very hard for them to notice such things. So you really need to be very keen in these situations and be open to talk about it even with parents. And also, parents, please also take care of your children. Be there for them always, and you may ensure that they are okay whenever they are, experiencing such, issues, yeah, and symptoms and signs. Okay, that's what you have. That's what we had for today about ADHD. I'm your host, Max Gisheru. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Cindy, for coming. See you next time on the next episode. Remember to like, subscribe, and share our content. We'll really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and have a good day.
Wonderful.